yes, there's obviously some issues with it, like what we just saw earlier a few weeks ago. By the time this video comes out, there was a massive cold snap in the north of the United States, and there were all these people that had Teslas and electric cars that were all stranded because of how cold it got. They were basically dead in the water. The cars would not run, the batteries would not charge, nothing would work. At the same time, I want to say that, you can't really say all that much about that, because when it gets to -50, -60, like these massively low temperatures, lead acid has its problems anyway. Like any battery is going to have a problem whenever you get that cold. So, I guess it's a talking point, not necessarily something that I would say is a problem, because especially when you're talking about boating. In boating, you're not boating in -40 degrees. If you are, that's a choice. So I don't know, if that would really relate, but that is kind of where you see some of the problems. And then obviously talking about, the explosive factors of it, even though lithium phosphate, doesn't have the same problems as a nickel manganese cobalt, so NMCs. NMCs, if they are damaged, those are the ones that will explode. But the problem is that LFP, lithium iron phosphate, which is the main type of battery in the boating world, because they don't have thermal runaway as easy when they're damaged. So you could, stab the battery, and I want to say 99 times out of 100, it's not going to catch on fire. Even though there are some experiences, again, depending on the BMS and the quality of the battery. Obviously, when you make something super cheap and you just pack it together and people are trying to make money, they can cheap out on certain steps and make things dangerous that they shouldn't be. But that's a whole nother topic all in of its own. When you're talking about LFP, a good brand and a good product, it doesn't have that issue. But you don't have the capacity and the range that you get with the nickel manganese cobalt. NMC, they are more dangerous, but you get more range and you get more capacity out of the battery than you do with the LFP. There are, obviously new technologies coming out all the time, and they will eventually figure something out to make it, the ultimate product, like solid state. So opposed to using certain types of electrolytes, they use a solid state inside the battery, and that shows a lot of promises. Obviously, I think the main problem with the solid state is that the cycle count is lower. So how many times you can drain the battery and recharge it, the cycle life is a lot lower than an electrolyte substance. And then the graphite, they're using graphite, and then sodium. So sodium is a salt, and opposed to using lithium, they'll use sodium and solid state and graphite and all these other, they're making different chemical compounds to get the best out of each different one to make it cheaper, last longer, and have more range. So if you've got batteries that will last you 15, 20 years that don't explode and have less weight than carrying 600 gallons of fuel, then, the benefits are there. Obviously, charging them, that could be its own problem, its own discussion of, if you burn 600 gallons of fuel on your trips or wherever you're going, how much electricity are you going to use whenever you charge your boat? So does your electric bill go up $1,000 a month to keep your boat charged? Or, that whole mathematic side of things, I don't really know. You'd have to kind of figure that out. We'll figure that out as time goes on. But as far as like them being safe and being useful and being like the future of boating, I definitely see the potential, and I'm all about it. I think, the batteries, again, if they can figure out sodium, because they're so much more abundant than lithium, that'll be great. If they figure out the solid state to make them have the cycle lives, if you can get 20,000 cycles out of a battery, that battery's going to outlast the boat. And if you can get, the graphite and all these other things to get different ranges, so where you can have a boat that can do 600 miles or whatever it may be, to be equivalent to using, fuel, then 100%, there's no disadvantage there. Because if it doesn't explode when you damage it, then the safety's there. And if you can get the range, then great. That's kind of the biggest problem that I think people are seeing with electric on cars. But obviously when they figure it out with a car, they're going to figure it out with a boat too. So it's just a matter of time and when they figure that out. If you get, like, let's say you get into an electric car, it says that you have 400 miles until you're empty. That's all fine and dandy when you're doing 65, 70 miles an hour. But that's not really the true range, because you get in this car and you're doing 90, 95, 100, you're not going to get 400 miles range out of it. You're going to get, 250 or whatever, whatever it may be. I don't know the exact number. That's an exaggeration, but you get the point. The point is that you think you have this distance, but depending on how much you're using it. In boats, we're going, wide open throttle as much as possible. We're using a lot of capacity, a lot of power, really. So if you like this clip, you can watch the full podcast over here or watch another one over here.